Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, we're going to talk about why it's important to strive to be rich, but also be realistic about our expectations about other people. Because believe it or not, suddenly having a lot of money doesn't really change that much about you. And I kind of humble brag, say this as a humble bragger, as a person who literally paid off my mortgage under 3 years, and I don't even know anyone else who's done that, and I'm probably gonna say that for probably a couple more videos until I get sick of it. Um, that people will still suck. When you become rich, people will still suck. And one of the things that's really important is that you learn from other people's experiences, right? So if other people have had this experience where maybe within a couple years they were able to get a multi-million-dollar business off the ground and it wasn't really that hard for them, and from their experience they're seeing that people still suck, you got to learn from that and assume that you're not smarter or wiser than people like that, right? So I remember I read this article on Inc.com, and this was a long time ago, 2012, right? And it said a Gen Xers rant, "What's wrong with my millennial employees? Doesn't anyone under 30 want to work?" Right? And it's the typical, rants that people hear, that nobody wants to work anymore, and people have been saying that for a long time. But let's read the article, right? And again, July 30, 2012, by Maria Jimenez, co-founder Orchid Boutique. And let's just read a couple lines. "I never imagined the toughest problem I would have in running a multi-million-dollar business would not be getting off the ground, staying afloat, or growing at a rapid pace." That's a really good problem to have. "While all huge challenges, they're a walk in the park compared to the biggest obstacle I dealt with 5.5 years of business, recruiting a group of loyal, competent, young employees under 30 years old." Right? And then let me just skip some of this. Um, so here's a list of my grievances, and she's talking about millennial employees, and I'm a millennial too, right? So if people say, "Hey, our generation sucks," I'm not offended. I just really wish our generation didn't suck, if that's really the case, right? Here's a list of grievances. "They're cocky. I have yet to give a millennial leadership position have to accept their new role with humility. Once you give them a fancy title like assistant buyer or marketing specialist, they automatically seem to think they're God's gift to you, your clients, and your other employees. They're not afraid to speak to others in a condescending manner or even talk back to you. They nonchalantly move through life doing things I wouldn't have dreamed of doing to any of my superiors, let alone the owner of a company when I was their age. They take things for granted. Millennials seem to think they have a ton of options, even in a recession-hobbled economy with a very few challenging entry-level job openings, and even fewer in the fashion industry. 20-somethings seem to think their options are endless." Now, let me stop here. This actually kind of reminds me of poor tenants. So when I put out a rent a house on the market, it's really weird how the really really rich tenant, who is my current tenant right now, did not think that way at all. She was like, "I've been looking for a house for a year. Oh my goodness, I just want a place to live." Whereas all these other people, like I offered like 7, 8 leases, and they're like, "Oh, whatever." And I'm like, "What?" But it seems to be this common thing where people who don't have the most options, or who don't have any options at all, think they have all the options in the world, where the people who like have the resources to get those options know how scarce they are. Yeah, I don't know what it is about the delusionality that we experience in society today. I don't know if it's because of social media, but it was like, there is a housing shortage. Why are you not taking the rental application process seriously, right? And the person who had the most money is the one who took it seriously. This is why I don't like working with poor people, right? Like I don't like, if poor people had the right attitude about like, "Oh my goodness, I don't have that much options." I'll be like, "Yeah, dude, like, but I'll work with you." But for whatever reason, especially this day and age, it only seems like the rich people have this attitude because they know they have a lot of money, but there are not enough goods and services in the marketplace to fulfill their needs, if that makes sense, right? So let's just keep reading. And again, I don't agree with everything here, but other things, like they think they're exempt from the rules. I don't remember the last time I told a new employee something that he or she followed verbatim the first time. In the beginning, before they understand implicitly that carelessness is not a value we favor, almost all millennials demonstrate they don't care about what the consequences of their actions will be. Sending emails to clients with blatant grammatical mistakes, telling customers incorrect information because it thinks the better answers and ignoring an inquiry from their boss. So, isn't that funny? Like, you ever deal with people and want to bang your head against the wall just because you give like very like simple, clear instructions, and then they just do the exact opposite because they think they know better, and then they stumble and fall and they don't even care. It happens to me all the time. Yeah, like I'm really surprised. Like I guess like at this stage of life, like I'm like really surprised when people follow directions. I'm just like, yeah, I'm just gonna tell you the best thing ever, and people are just gonna do the exact opposite. Happens all the time. All right, so scroll down, following through. That's a big one too. You know, I don't really get why people just say things like, hey man, let's hang out, and then you call them and they act like you're this weird person. But people just don't follow through. Like, you know how many people there are that just make promises, and then they're like, they don't care. It's like the whole society's like that, right? Scroll down. They don't want to pay their dues. Yeah, I mean, we live in a culture of now, right? And I kind of get why people are like that. And to be honest, like the whole culture of dues, I think a lot of people have been taking advantage of. So I don't necessarily agree with this one, but there is a little component that I do agree with. And then, yeah, so that's where the kind of the article ends about kind of rant about millennials. But I honestly think most of society is like that. And maybe at my stage of life, it's like, oh, poor people are especially like that, right? Like, what's wrong with poor people? Because they act like they have all the options in the world. And like again, I offered 8 leases to people, and the only person who took the tenant application process seriously was the really, really, really rich person. And everyone else acted like they were too good for the rental house, even though we have a rental housing shortage. And I'm kind of relating this to real estate because we tend to talk about real estate here. But you know, and here's the thing. I say this as a person who used to make $20,000 a year. And I remember I said to myself, and you might hear me saying the same thing over and over again, where if I made double that, I'm like, I'm super rich. So in my mind, I'm already super rich, right? Maybe I'm delusional, but hey, I'm going to humble brag again. I paid off a mortgage in 3 years, right? Don't know anyone who's done that. And you know what? Even though I'm quote rich in my mind and I may be delusional, people still suck. And people try to convince me all the time. Probably once a year, I have like 5 to 10 people tell me I don't know what it is that I'm doing. Like why? And my favorite words is something I've done 1,000 times before, and people are like saying, "Why would that work?" As if that's gonna, you know, like I'm trying to explain to you things I've done and have experience in, and you're telling me that I'm some sort of a noob or amateur, and I'm just like, oh, okay. And it's usually the real now again. I know I don't want to make this a rant about poor people. As a former poor adult, and I say adult because I grew up in a rich neighborhood. So as a kid, I was kind of well off, but as an adult, I was not. It's kind of like the Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad story where he was like living in his car as an adult, but then his dad, when he was a kid, was like a superintendent. I want to say Super Nintendo Simpsons joke of the Hawaiian school system. Um, but what I'm saying is that people still suck when you're rich. Even going forward, I'm gonna have 5 to 10 people here telling me I don't know what I'm doing. Literally, I like, and maybe I'm just a little bit too nice. What am I going to do? Pull out like, hey, I guess I know what I'm doing because I paid off a mortgage in 3 years. Don't I know what I'm doing? No, they'll just kind of gaslight me and try to tell me I don't know what I'm doing. And then they always do this thing, and I keep telling people like, hey, don't do this. Like, you'll get a much better result if you actually just try to help people with their goals, right? The reason, easiest reason why I can just kind of talk to people who have a lot of money is because I just try to I see them as regular people. In fact, yesterday I was talking to a lady who runs an e-commerce store is making, 300 something $1,000 a year, and she still needs help. Talk to her about business credit. She had no idea what it was, right? Like, just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean anything. And she's probably more receptive than the people who make whatever they make. And I don't want to say poor people because it sounds like, like you're kind of talking down on them. But I don't even know what other word to use. And again, every time I talk about things that I think would be helpful, the ironically, the people who I think need it the most are the ones who act like they're too good for it. And it's like, wow, you all suck. Well, at least that's what I say in my mind, right? Like that's really what it is. People will still suck when you're rich, and so opportunities to share and learn and grow together with the people around you are kind of rare because 9 times out of 10 you're just going to encounter a person who's going to tell you that you don't know what you're doing, right? Tons of people. This is why I closed off the Google form, and I got to make another video about that, about why I closed the Google form, because hey, you want to learn together? Sign up on the Google form, and then I get people calling me or go joining a Zoom calls trying to act like I don't know what I'm doing, and it's like, you know, I'm almost kind of like an undercover boss. You ever watch that Key and Peele skit? Where about undercover boss, where like people kind of treat you bad based on your perceived status, where it's like, ooh, this person has 100 or 200 subs, and right now we're about 3,000 right now, but 100 or 200 subs, right? We're about 100 or 200, and let me tell this guy who's just starting a YouTube channel, and he must not know what he's doing, so let me go ahead and sign up and tell him like you don't know what you're doing. Like what? Again, this will still happen because you could be a multimillionaire and again learn from other people's experiences and people will still suck and not listen to directions and act like they're better than you and it's like ugh, whatever. So you just have to do what it is that you can do in this life, but don't expect any better just because you become rich, right? People will still suck. All right, well that's it for today. Have a great day everybody and we will speak next time.